Okay, great. Thank you very much, Linda and colleagues. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be able to join you today. My name is Claire, and with my colleague, Dr. Geraldine Gray, we're just going to talk with you for a few minutes now about online learning in TU Dublin and what first year students can expect who will be joining us this autumn. So we're delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you today. We know it's very nice and sunny outside, so it's great that you've joined us, and hopefully you'll get out to the sunshine a bit later. Let me just move on a slide. Apologies. Okay, I'm just having a small issue with moving the slide. Oh, here we go. Sorry now, apologies. So what we're going to talk about today is just really to give you a flavour of what things are going to be like in September, what's going to happen at times when you might not be on the physical campus, so how we're going to work around that, whether there's anything you can do at this point in time to help you get ready. And we'd also like to hear any questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to answer those today. So who are we and what do we do? Well, Geraldine is a lecturer in TU Dublin in the Blanchardstown campus, and she'll talk maybe a little bit more with you about that in a few moments' time. And I work in a team based on the city campus in Ainger Street at the moment, which is to help all lecturers in TU Dublin use online teaching and learning. So we're there for everybody, and we've been doing some support work across that in recent months. Geraldine, would you like to say anything about your teaching just quickly at this stage?
So I'm in the informatics department in Blanchardstown campus, so we're running the computing CDM courses, and I do most of my teaching online and have done for the last 10 years, so it's not just new with COVID, it's something that we've been working with for quite a while.
Yeah, and the group that I'm working in, we've just realised we've been running for about 20 years, so going right back in time and trying to help people since the web has come along to support their teaching and learning online. So we're there to support all of the schools. I'm going to hand over to Geraldine to speak a little bit more to this one then.
So come September, our goal would be to have as much on campus as is possible, as is feasible, while complying with the government guidelines. And we have two groups that we'd prioritise being on campus. The first is our first years, and particularly getting to know you sessions, because that's so important when you're starting off in first year, that you start getting to know your classmates and getting to know us as well. So that will be a priority for us come September. And the other priority will be on a number of programs. You simply have to be on campus for some of the practical work because of the equipment or the materials that you need access to. So they will be the two priorities for us come September, to have you on campus to make friends, and have you on campus for those classes where you need access to equipment. And so when you start in September, you'll do a number of modules, which are like subjects, as the term we use for subjects, and within each module there are lectures which are classes for the entire class group, and they can be quite large numbers in them, so it won't be feasible to have those on campus with the current social distance guidelines, so they're likely to be online. And then also for every subject you have classes with smaller groups, labs and tutorials. So labs would be where you're doing practical work, and tutorials are classes where you work through exercises and assessments. So they're sort of a helping hand to material that's covered in lecture notes. And typically that will be in groups of about 16. So we are hoping to run at least some of those on campus, so that you are engaging with your peers and with us physically. And so there will definitely be content online, obviously, but we are hoping to have some content in face-to-face as well. And that's essentially blended learning. That's what we mean by blended learning. So some of it will be face-to-face and some of it will be online. Do you want to move on, Claire? And because of that, it will be more flexible. Your timetable will be more flexible, and particularly for the online stuff, because it will be recorded so you can access it any time. So this slide is just some of the terminology you hear around e-learning and delivering stuff online that myself and Claire will talk you through. So if you go to the two top corners, you see Moodle and Brightspace. So these are our two VLEs, our virtual learning environments, which is sort of a long way of saying they're websites where you access all of your learning resources and materials for each of your modules. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those over the coming slides. But if you look at the bottom two corners, you see Adobe Connect and Bongo, and they are our two online classrooms. So some programs use Adobe Connect and some will use Bongo. And you're probably familiar at this stage with some online classrooms, but essentially what these allow you to do is you go into the classroom, you'll have a chat box where you can ask questions. You'll see the slides that the lecturer is using. You can use whiteboards for writing yourself. You can create breakout rooms, so you can go into smaller group discussion rooms within the classroom. There's lecturer can take control of your screen. If there's something not working, say on your laptop, we can take control of that and have a look at what's going on. And you can share your screen if you're doing presentations. So there's an awful lot that you can do in an online classroom. And as I say, we've been using these now for 10 years, and the feedback we get every year from students is they're pleasantly surprised at how similar it is to a face-to-face classroom, in the sense that you can replicate an awful lot of what you do in a classroom. So Claire, I'll move.
Thanks, Geraldine. Yeah, so some of the other little buzzwords we included here, and they might sound a bit mysterious at this point, so we thought that you know, to help you to understand those, I suppose if we took three of them together, the blended learning, online learning, e-learning, I suppose strictly speaking, they could be quite different things in different settings, but oftentimes lecturers and ourselves in the team where I work, we would use these interchangeably, and we mean what Geraldine was describing a few minutes ago. So usually some mix of online learning, so something you're doing online on your computer or your device, with perhaps some face-to-face contact in class with your tutorials. Again, the blend is going to be a little bit different next year because of the circumstances that we're in, but we would use a mix of things all the time. And we have done before this. So if your lecturer is talking about learning online or blended learning or e-learning, that's the kind of thing that they're talking about. Sometimes e-learning is used to mean specific software or specific packages. So that might be something related to your discipline that's special for your discipline. So maybe something like computer-aided design would have a specific package, or graphic design would. So those kinds of terms might come up as well. But in general, they would be talking about this mix of online activities along with teaching materials and maybe some face-to-face then, depending on how much access to campus that we're going to have. Some of the things that they'll very often use, and we would see this all the time in our team, and we'd be helping people to set this up, are online quizzes. So those could be within Moodle or Brightspace, or they might use separate apps for this. So things like Socrative and Kahoot are words you might hear. They're apps that you might be able to use on your phone or your tablet device if you have one, as well as your computer. It just depends what you're using yourself. And the quizzes are very helpful for the lecturer to understand where you're at with the topic. So if they need to check that you've understood a term or an equation or a formula or a definition, they might run a little quiz with you. And it's really motivational as well, and you'll get interesting things to do through the quizzes. And then Moodle and Brightspace have their own quiz functions as well. So they might look a little bit different, but the same kind of thing is happening. And an advantage of the quizzes is you'll tend to get a result very quickly and some feedback, so that you know how you're getting on and you know what areas you might need to look at again, or you might need to go back over. Discussion forums then, this is where you would do something a bit more like email, but within your system, within Moodle or within Brightspace. The lecturer might post a topic, so that would be the beginning email if you like, and you might write a reply, or a group of you might write a reply, and you'd have a structured discussion about some of the things that you're learning. So it might feel a little bit old-fashioned or strange when you're so used to instant messaging and social media with each other, but the idea is to give you a bit more space and a bit more time to think about what you're learning. So you have some time to prepare your message, maybe to look something up if you need to add to the discussion. And the discussion particularly at the moment, if we can't be on campus, is very valuable, because if you were in class on campus, we would be setting up discussion groups, you would be working as groups together on particular things, and so we need something to enable us to do that kind of learning when we're not all on campus. So our discussion forums are very helpful for that, and then they stay there in the system as well, so you can go and refer to them later on. You could go back into Moodle or Brightspace and look at a discussion that happened some time ago, and if you're thinking, oh, I know somebody said something really helpful about that, and I'm going to go back and look at what they said, or they might have shared a link that's useful to you, or a reading or something else. So they're stable and they're organized by topics, and that means you can easily go back in and look at them again. The other one we put on the slide for you today is webinar. You might have heard this term before. If you think of seminar was the old word, if we can say that, where you would have a group gathering to maybe hear a presentation on a topic and discuss a topic. So often we would have seminars on campus, or you'd have them in other parts of your life, maybe for a hobby or something you were interested in learning about. And when the web came along, this word was created just to show a web-based seminar, to reflect that kind of occasion, that kind of event. So you might hear your lecturers saying, we're going to use some flipped learning, so something that you would do separately to class, and then we'll have a 1-hour webinar on the topic, and that's what they mean. So you would be in real time then, and you would be joining in real time rather than going to a discussion forum, which happens kind of on a, offline in a way, and separately to a real time experience. So we might call a discussion forum asynchronous, it's happening as and when the messages come in, and a webinar is something called synchronous, so it's happening in real time, and just like we are here right now. So those are some of the terms we thought you might be hearing later on, and it would be useful for you to have got an idea of what they're all about at this stage. So we're coming now to this slide to think about what's happening when you're not on campus. So Geraldine, I think you're going to say a little bit about this one as well.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier the Brightspace and Moodle. So there are two virtual learning environments, or VLE. And again, some programs use Moodle, some use Brightspace. So you'll use one or the other. It's not a question of using a mix of both. And these are where all of your resources to do with a module are recorded. So if you have any questions about your module, or if you're wondering what happened in last week's lecture, or what is your assessment due, whatever, this is your first port of call, is that module's page on either Moodle or Brightspace. And for the next two slides, we have an example of what Brightspace looks like, and we'll have an example of what Moodle looks like, so we can give you a bit more details on those slides as to what's, the type of thing that would be in the virtual learning environment.
Yeah, so here is a little glimpse of Brightspace. So this is the virtual learning environment that we happen to use on the City campus. So if you're not familiar with, when I say City campus, it means the former DIT sites. So we use Brightspace at the moment. It's also sometimes called Desire to Learn. So just in case you've ever come across that before, that's the brand. And then it's customized for our courses and our modules within TU Dublin City Campus. So if you were to log in, you'd have a login following your registration into the university, and that's used for all kinds of things. And you can use it then to log into Brightspace, and your modules will be there waiting for you, and your lecturers will have set up pages that will guide you to what you need to do within your modules. Now, when we're more on campus, this would be a support to what you're doing within your campus-based activities. We probably will see it used a bit more than that now, for obvious reasons. If we're not going to be on campus, we might be using this more. So typically it will look a little bit like this. You will have an introductory area, a welcome area, maybe something like your module essentials. So that could be a timetable, a handbook, any essential information you need to have. And maybe then something like this assessment area or submission area for when the time comes to hand in assignments. But after that, they will have maybe themes, or they could be called topics, or they could be called weeks of your module. And they're little spaces for the content, the material, the activities that would be happening with each week or each topic or each module. So it's very user friendly, and it's just a case of finding your way, clicking around to see what you need to have. You'll get little alerts. I don't know if you can see the little bell up here with the orange dot on it is telling me there's a notification for me, or you could see messages or information coming into you there just to alert you to what you need to check out on your visit into the space. So that's a little overview of Brightspace, and that's one of our real life modules there that we've been using this year. I'll move on to the next slide and you'll see a little bit of Moodle.
So Moodle is what's used in the Blanchardstown and Tala campuses, and it works very similar to Brightspace in that you will log in and you see all the modules that you're going to be doing this semester, and you'll see there over on the right a calendar with the 4th and the 19th highlighted. So that tells you when you have an assessment due. And it's not like school in the sense that your teacher keeps reminding you you have a essay due this Friday. Your assessments are set up, your lecturer will tell you about them, and then you can use the alerts within Brightspace and the calendar within Moodle just to keep you on top of managing your time and what is due next. So if you click on a lecture or on any of those modules, you'll find all of the lecture notes. You'll find links to other resources that the lecturer has put up there. You'll find the recordings of any classes that have happened so far. And there'll also be a link there to the live classroom, whether that's Bongo or Adobe Connect. You can access the live classroom directly from in here as well. You can find your assessment brief. So what is it you have to do for your next assessment? The link to upload the assessment will be on that page. And once the assessment is corrected, you click back into it and you'll see all your feedback and your grade as well. So essentially all of the module activities can be managed through this VLE. And Claire mentioned the news forum as well will be on top of each VLE page. So anything that any aspect of the course delivery, you'll find information and management on it within the VLE. Okay. So finally then, it's what can you do to be ready for September? So there's a couple of things there on the slide that you can have a look at yourself, but there's 3 key things that really I'd like you to take away from the session today in terms of preparing for September. And the first is be open to taking part. There'll be lots of activities running, lots of events, some of them face-to-face, some of them online, but a priority for us is to give you plenty of opportunities to get to know your classmates and to make friends. And everyone else in your class, they won't necessarily know people either, so you're not on, don't ever feel you're the only one who doesn't know what's going on. And it is very confusing coming to college first. If you remember starting secondary school, that was confusing. Starting college is confusing and will be for a number of weeks, and that's not because of COVID-19, that's just because it's something very new and it is different to how secondary school is. So be open to taking part and getting involved and getting to know people. That's really important for your first semester. And also be open to new ways of doing things. So COVID-19 has forced us all to do that over the last couple of months, but between COVID-19 and climate change, things will change anyway over the next 10 years in terms of how we work and how we play and how we learn. And so this is a opportunity for you to explore that and explore what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So be open to this new way of doing things, whether it's temporary or how that will evolve as climate change restrictions that get imposed on us. So it's a great opportunity to get used to doing more things online and learning how to make friends and how to make connections in that kind of environment. I guess the third thing I'd say to you is reach out to us. The relationship between the student and both academic staff and support staff is a little bit different to school in that you're adults now and you've chosen to come here. You're not here because you have to be. And because of that, the relationship between us is it's a less formal one. Your discipline is kind of finished with that. There's a lot of that in school. You don't get that in third level. We're not reporting back to parents. We can't even talk to your parents because you're adults and you're doing this. You're choosing to be here. And so, talk to us. We're well used to that. We're well used to having adult discussions with our students. That's kind of the atmosphere that you get at third level. And I think TU Dublin is particularly good at being very open and engaging with their students, and very supportive of students. We've been doing it for years. We're well used to it. So no matter what your issue is, you might think it's trivial, you might think it's unusual. There will be people with maybe serious concerns. We have heard it before. We're well used to this, and we're expecting that level of engagement, of that one-to-one engagement with students. So reach out to us and avail of all the services that are on offer, and get to know us. And as I was saying, a lot of this will be online. I've been doing online for 10 years, and you actually get to know students quite well online, because you're meeting them at home, which is a very different context to a chat in the corridor or a chat in the classroom. So, you're talking to them in their messy bedrooms with the dog in the corner, or the cat curled up, or it's quite a different context, and you do actually get to know people very well. So I wouldn't be worried about not making friends online. Just be open to it. It is different from what you're used to, or what previous students are used to, but be open to it and know we are here and to support you through that, and we are genuinely interested in seeing you succeed, and we will do everything we can to support you with that. And back to you, Claire.
Thanks, Geraldine. I'm just going to quickly mention two things here, and because we had the campus available to us, we are also learning how to support you as online students now in a way that we weren't as familiar with as some places. And we've looked a lot at the Open University over in the UK, which has never had students on campus. So they're always at a distance and they're always online. So some of what they do to help their students and to help you to connect with each other has been really valuable to us. So if you did want to have a look at some of their materials, one of the things you could look at is this Open Learn resource, being an OU student, and that just stands for Open University. So the link is very long. I didn't put the link onto the slide, but if you did want to Google that, there's some nice tips and some nice introductions to things that you can do to help you learning online there. And the other quick tip, it's a little bit boring, but if you did have any time between now and later on in the year to think about learning your keyboard and touch typing, just to help you to speed up your interaction online, and typingclub.com is one example of a free resource that would help you to do that, but that's just a quick thing if you wanted to have a look at that. Okay, so we can pause with our talking now. We'll stop talking for a couple of minutes, and if you have questions or there's questions in the chat, hopefully we can help with those.
So feel free to type in questions in whatever platform you're using to listen to this, and we'd be happy to take those questions on board. Or you can type them in again and we can get back to you on them. So see, there are no questions in so far. So I hope you found that useful. We must have answered them all already, Claire. So we'll just give you another minute or two to see if questions come in.
They're shy. I'm thinking, trying to think, are there any other terminology things that we could throw in? There's always little words that people use that they don't realize you haven't heard before.
Maybe just to emphasize again that there are benefits to, material going online, and again we'd have this feedback from our students going back years. It is more flexible. So when you learn it's now you've now more control over that, and particularly for students with part-time jobs, and they might always miss Thursday afternoon or whatever, and then they struggle with that module, whereas now everything that happens online is recorded, so you can engage with that at a time that best suits yourself, and commute times will be down, so there are certain benefits as well to some content moving online.
So there's a question around extra supports for students with disabilities. I'm just seeing the chat box. I guess we would flag that there are wide-ranging supports at each of the sites, so Blanchardstown and Tala and the city campus. for students with disabilities. And also in terms of online, just I know from the work we're doing in our centre, we have sent out extensive materials to support lecturers with the design of online materials, so that they don't overlook small features, small things they can do that will make the material accessible to everybody. So I think every group within the services is contributing into that. I don't know if there's anything you'd want to add in there on that.
Yeah, we have a very good support structure for a variety of supports that students may need, both in terms of disabilities and specific learning difficulties people may have, and so please avail of them. They're still there, whether we're online or face to face. So that doesn't change. That level of support doesn't change. I see a question as well on how long an online session would be for each module, and that will vary from program to program, but typically an hour. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes a little more. The lab sessions where you're doing your own hands-on things, they can be up for 2 hours, but you're not listening for 2 hours. You're completing an exercise, but the lecturer will be online in real time to answer any questions that you have. So that type of practical session may go on for a bit longer, but the session where the lecture is sort of where we're doing the talking, you're doing the listening, would typically be an hour on most programs.
Yeah, we'd certainly be encouraging lecturers from the centre that I work in just to aim for about an hour, because it tends to be quite tiring after that, and it's difficult for us all to stay online for longer. But there could be activities either side of that. So we know some lecturers are planning that, and you could maybe be offline to do the activity and then go back on for your hour. There's one there about library. Now, I think all of that is still being worked out, but you may have heard discussion around the public libraries, how they're going to do things with click and collect type services. It might be that some of those types of services would be part of what we're doing, but I'm not part of the library staff, so I'm not going to be able to tell you definitively what's happening with that. What I would say is that there are extensive library resources available online already and have been for many years. And what we've been encouraging people to do in preparing their teaching is to add those directly into the module in Brightspace and in Moodle, as the case might be, so that you can get them easily. You're not having to also go to the library site to find them separately. So we're hoping that lots of lecturers will have done that, or given you a link over to the library site, rather than a lot of extra work to do on the library website. So we'll try and make that, again, as streamlined as it can be.
There's a question whether any lessons will be on campus, and we are planning that there will be some face-to-face, but again, that will have to be within government guidelines. And so we're hoping for face-to-face, but we're also planning, should there be a second COVID wave, that we can still continue to operate online. So it should be feasible to do everything online, but if government restrictions allow, yes, definitely we would like to do some face-to-face classes as well.
Yeah.
And there's a question about help buying a laptop, for example, for distance learning. There are plans to put supports in place on a case-by-case basis, but the details of that are still being ironed out as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that's still being worked out, and I know that the admissions team will be able to pick up on some of these questions that we don't have all the answers to already. The labs question, again, there is a lot of preparation going on around that, as far as I know, just from sitting in the centre, as it were, and a number of apps and tools are being resourced to sort of support some of that online where possible. But obviously we do want to be on campus when we can be, and we'll follow the guidelines to make sure that we can do that when it's possible. So we've only got maybe half a minute or a minute left. I don't know if there's anything else we... Yeah,
and some labs, just directly that question, some labs will be possible to do those online, and maybe the case even that equipment might need to be sent out to students, or things that they might need, or kits. We put together kits that are quite cheap to resource that maybe you would need. But again, as Claire said, our priority would be to have them face to face, but we will be ready to run them online if that's needed. Okay, so I think that's our time up now. So for any questions that were left unanswered, the admissions team will get back to you on those.
And we'll just say the very best of luck, and we look forward to seeing you in TU Dublin.
Best of luck with their decision making between now and the CAO closing deadlines. And as Claire said, we hope it's to see you all next September.